having a yeah?
There's blood all over the place. I just got assaulted and jumped. Are you the one that got... No, that was the other victim, but I got really bad and I had blood all over me.
Latham stabbed his 51-year-old neighbor multiple times, ultimately causing his death. Now he's being tried for the crime of manslaughter.
This is Zachary Latham, the 18-year-old who killed his neighbor to become a TikTok star. Some TikTokers, content creators, and influencers are known to do crazy things to enhance their following and engagement. So, was this one of those cases? Did this teen kill someone to increase his followers on TikTok? Or was it an extreme case of a neighbor's feud? Let's find out.
This Zachary Latham was trying to be a TikTok star, that he's filming his neighbors, he's acting up, disrupting the peace, being socially unacceptable, all of it because he wanted to be TikTok famous.
The case of Zachary Latham and William Durham was a shocking and tragic incident that unfolded on May 4th, 2020. This case offers a troubling glimpse into the dark side of social media culture, where the pursuit of online fame can lead to devastating real-world consequences. But let's start from the top, because this incident didn't just unfold over an argument or a random hassle. Zachary Latham and the victim had a bit of a dark history with each other before the unfortunate incident. There's an origin to everything, and this story begins when Latham moved into his grandparents' home in Vinland, New Jersey in 2018 when he was 16 years old. There aren't many details we could find out about Zachary's background or his life before the age of 16. No information was provided about his parents, except that his mother passed away when he was 16, and apparently the teen was emancipated not long after his mother's death. If you haven't heard of the process of emancipation, it's a legal process in which a minor, someone under the age of 18, is granted the legal status of an adult. When a minor is emancipated, they are no longer under the legal control or authority of their parents or guardians. Instead, they are considered legally responsible for their own decisions and actions, just like an adult. There are a variety of reasons for minors to seek emancipation, such as escaping neglective or abusive parents, pursuing early marriages, or making medical-related decisions. Though it's unclear what Latham's reason was, at least his grandparents were willing to help provide a roof over his head. So Latham moved into this new neighborhood and immediately started causing trouble. And one of the people who noticed his troublesome behavior was William T. Durham, a 51-year-old veteran who lived next door to Latham's grandparents. Apparently, Latham had a love for cars and reckless driving. He would drive around the neighborhood in a thoughtless manner, and it wasn't sitting well with his neighbors. William wanted to address the situation, but he didn't approach Latham about it the first time. He went to his grandfather and told him about Latham's reckless driving. And being a traditional guardian, Latham's grandfather wasn't going to let him get away with it. He gave Latham a lecture and told him he needed to stop doing what he had been doing, or else they were going to kick him out. And on top of that, the grandparents forced Latham to go over to the Durham's house to apologize. The teen wasn't happy with this arrangement, but he had no choice. So he unwillingly marched himself over to the neighbor's home and apologized for his reckless driving, promising he wouldn't do it again. But of course he didn't mean it, because right after his apology, Latham went right back to his mindless stunts, cruising around the neighborhood and acting like he's too cool for school. Also, an important thing to note is that Latham had a history of minor charges like simple assault, terroristic threats, and criminal mischief on his juvenile record. Yeah, so this kid was trouble. At this point, William's impression of Latham wasn't too good, and it continued to worsen over the next 2 years. As we mentioned earlier, this entire situation wasn't caused by a single fight or altercation. It's 2 years filled with small conflicts and heated exchanges. Imagine putting up with a reckless teen for 2 years. It would be a nightmare for anyone. We could only assume that Latham's grandparents were exhausted at this point and didn't want to deal with the back and forth situation anymore. So the Durham family and Latham were always at each other's throats. And it didn't help matters that Latham was continuously provoking the family on TikTok. Like many other people obsessed with social media, he was one of those who wished to achieve virtual stardom. He had created many videos and TikTok posts over the years, but none of them managed to capture the attention of a large audience. Interestingly, most of his content was about reckless driving or him posing with fancy cars, which raised the question of how he managed to acquire so many luxurious vehicles. People could argue that he might have a successful job and could afford lavish expenses, except Latham was serving as a National Guard during this time. Apparently, the teen enlisted as soon as he turned 18, which makes his behavior even more unacceptable because as a military personnel, he is supposed to be serving the people, not provoking them for his own enjoyment. In April of 2020, Latham recorded a confrontation between him and Catherine Durham, William's wife, calling her a Karen when she confronted him about his driving again. And for some reason, this video went viral on his TikTok account, attracting more than 3 million views. Maybe it's because of the keyword Karen that got him so many views, because people nowadays are attracted to content that calls out bullies or domineering people online. But that's not all. In the comment section of the post, there were many people who left freakish comments, encouraging Latham to continue messing with Catherine because they thought it would be hilarious to see. And as someone who's been craving the chance to achieve social media fame, Latham was determined to give these people what they wanted. Maybe he thought of himself as an undiscovered actor who got his big break and was destined to seize the spotlight. Whatever it was not going to end well. Latham continued to be a nuisance to the Durhams, driving by their home, shouting and taunting Catherine to get a reaction out of her. He wanted her to come out of the house yelling and screaming so he could post it to his account and get more engagement.
He turns the corner here and the Durham family's outside doing yard work. It was a beautiful day and he yells out the window, hey Karen, we went viral on TikTok.
Can you believe the audacity of this kid? He literally has been annoying the heck out of these people for 2 years, and now he wants to use them to get himself famous. What was going on through his head? Could you get any more desperate for attention? He already had such an arrogant attitude for someone who made no impact in the world yet. Imagine if he was actually famous. What would he do then? At one point, William and Catherine's 21-year-old son got fed up with this kid's harassment and tried to confront him, telling him to get out of the car. In turn, Latham told him that he was armed with a knife. And guess what? The 18-year-old recorded the entire thing and posted it on his TikTok with the title, "Karen's son found the video that went viral and tried taking me out of the car. Blow up for part 3. Clearly, Latham was making this out to be a joke. He wanted to go viral so bad that he was willing to continue tormenting these people. It didn't matter to him that he was being a pain to his neighbors. Nothing mattered except his obsession with getting a viral video. Latham was truly a nightmare of a neighbor to live with. It doesn't mean that he wasn't an evil person or anything, at least not at this point. It just means that he was annoying, attention-seeking, and a self-centered person who didn't care about other people's feelings. Eventually, Latham did gain over 40,000 followers on TikTok. Law enforcement officers were called after the confrontation with the neighbor's son, but they only took statements from both sides and no charges were filed. After so many confrontations and harassment, the Durham family decided to seek legal assistance. They tried to file a complaint against Zachary Latham, but law enforcement officers claimed they couldn't sign the complaint because the courts were closed due to the global pandemic. This conveys that they couldn't get any legal or law enforcement assistance on this matter and had to continue enduring the nonsense. I mean, it's not completely the law enforcement people's fault. The pandemic forced the entire world to go into hibernation. It had an extremely negative impact in the United States and continued to be a problem after the nationwide lockdown. So it's understandable how major cases could be delayed due to the courts being closed. But there could have been a better workaround for this situation because during this time, the dispute between them hadn't evolved into a crime yet. So it was still manageable. And all they needed was for someone to review the complaint and sign off on it. In no way am I suggesting that officials were biased towards the Durham's complaint, but there could have been another way to resolve the situation. For example, local judicial offices and departments could have switched to virtual meetings or hearings for minor charges and complaints in their area. Authorities must understand that crime doesn't stop because there's a global pandemic. I mean, doctors, lawyers, students, even social workers were getting their work done virtually since the beginning of the pandemic, so there was a way to stop things from getting out of control. However, the Durhams were left to sort things out for themselves. It's kind of a depressing situation when a civilian seeks help from local officials but gets turned away. And if you can't reach help from the law, where else can you get it from? There was video evidence on Latham's TikTok where he recorded a uniformed officer saying he won't arrest Latham, even though he's seen the video of the teen's reckless behavior. In the video, you can clearly see that Latham is questioning the officer and telling him to say hi to TikTok in a very joking manner. It's like he was proud to have the law on his side, and maybe he was.
We would arrest you.
But you won't do anything even though you saw video proof, correct?
Correct.
Okay,
For your video, that is correct.
thank you. Say what's up, TikTok.
TikTok?
Yeah, say what's up.
Everything led to that fateful day of May 4th, 2020. On this day, Latham continued his mindless mischief and decided to swerve his car onto the sidewalk, almost hitting another teenager who was driving his bike in the neighborhood. This person happened to be William Durham's 17-year-old son. When William found out about this, he decided to put his foot down. Enough was enough. As a parent, he wasn't going to tolerate some mindless teen almost killing his kid. So he did something that would bring the entire feud to a tragic end. William and his family marched over to the Latham's grandparents' home to confront them. Yes, the entire family was involved in the confrontation, which wasn't a wise decision. You can't cross into someone's home or territory and start to brawl with them. Even though Latham always tried to harass them, he did it from the roadside, which was off their property, so he technically didn't violate them. But when you cross into someone's front yard or driveway, you could be considered a threat to their safety. However, it's not like the Durhams had a choice. Not being able to receive help from the law enforcement, they had to take matters into their own hands. Also, Latham was 18 years old at the time, so there was no need to go to his grandparents anymore. Not like it would make a difference because it's not like the teen would listen to anyone but himself. So William saw Latham approaching from their home and tried to block the teen's car with his truck. Catherine, his wife, tried to record the incident with her phone while they confronted him for almost running over their son with his car. Latham got out of his vehicle and got physical with the family. He threw an elbow at Catherine, pushed her, and knocked her phone out of her hand. Then he returned to his car and sped home. The Durhams followed him to his home, and at this moment, Latham's wife, Sarah Latham, exited from the house to approach the family. Yes, 18-year-old Zachary Latham was married. Sarah walked out of the house holding her phone as she recorded the incident. She reportedly told the family that they better back up because they won't like what's coming out of the house. And what Sarah meant by that was that her husband was getting himself armed inside the house.
The guy he was about to confront went inside the house and retrieved 2 knives and a stun gun.
Clearly, Latham was ready to confront the family with force. Keep in mind that William and his family are unarmed. At this point, they should have removed themselves from the situation because there was no point in arguing with someone who doesn't want to see reason. It's like talking to a brick wall. From the beginning, you could see that they could never reach a mutual solution. It would have been better to go home, hire a lawyer, and sue the living daylights out of this kid. But of course, they didn't want to turn around and leave. They decided to keep approaching Latham. What happened next left everyone completely horrified. Latham fired his stun gun at one of William's sons, and the older man tried to hold him back, but the teen slashed his arm with one of his knives and then retreated to his garage. And as things escalated from there, William went after Latham and a nasty fight broke out. They were wrestling and wrangling each other while Catherine yelled in the background for Latham to drop the knife. Surprisingly, Latham's wife Sarah continued to record this brawl between the two men instead of calling 911 or doing something to help. She just stood there with her phone. Amidst the struggle, William was under the armpit, puncturing one of his lungs. The fatal injury took his life almost immediately. By the time paramedics arrived, William was pronounced dead on the scene. It was later revealed that Latham was the one who called 911. In the released audio of the emergency call, you can hear Latham frantically saying he was attacked by William and sustained many injuries himself.
There's blood all over the place. I just got assaulted and jumped.
Are you the one that got
No, that was the other victim, but I got beat up really bad and I had blood all over me.
It's shocking how Latham didn't mention anything about William, yet he was assaulted and injured as well. It's understandable that he was trying to get help. But there's a man dying on the ground next to him. If a person acted in self-defense and they accidentally gave someone a fatal injury, we would assume they'll say something along the lines of, "Someone assaulted me and I injured them in self-defense. Please send help, they're dying." Or, "I didn't mean to do it, he came at me first, please help." Basically, the necessary human remorse and guilt. Let's assume that Latham did nothing wrong, but as a person who just injured someone in the midsection area would express some kind of conscience-stricken attitude. But all the teen did was tell the dispatcher about himself, and he didn't mention anything about William. It almost sounded like he was trying to maximize his injuries to paint himself as the victim in the case.
Latham stabbed his 51-year-old neighbor multiple times, ultimately causing his death. Now he's being tried for the crime of manslaughter.
When officers arrived at the scene, William had sadly succumbed to his injury. Latham and his wife were sitting in the front of their home with two friends. The teen was taken to the hospital to get treated for a concussion and a few abrasions before he was taken into custody. He was later charged with second-degree manslaughter and aggravated assault, but Latham claimed he only did it in self-defense. He said that the family came at him in a violent way and they were armed with guns and a knife. He thought he was going to die. Therefore, he responded accordingly. However, recorded footage proves that William and his family were unarmed during the confrontation. Remember how his wife, Sarah, was recording from her phone since the moment the Durhams entered their property? Well, brace yourself, because you're probably going to be very upset when you learn the reason why she was documenting the entire brawl. Later, Sarah reportedly said that the reason she was recording was because her husband wanted to post it to his TikTok account, hoping to finally become the star he was destined for. This revelation weakened his claim of self-defense, because if he planned to record himself and the Durhams, it means he wanted to confront them. If he acted in self-defense, he wouldn't have his wife filming the event while he himself gets armed with 2 knives and a stun gun. Catherine and her sons were also charged with a simple assault and trespassing because they did enter someone else's property without permission, looking to create a conflict. To be honest, this horrific event could have been avoided if everyone was a little more neighborly in the beginning. Unfortunately, what's done is done, and there's no going back, so they have to go forward with this homicide case. The Durham family's lawyers, Diane Ruberton and Robert Simmons, believe that Latham had the intention of luring William and his family to his home, attacking them, and documenting it for TikTok, which sounds like a reasonable theory, considering how things unfolded and his wife admitting to recording the altercation for her husband's TikTok. I mean, how desperate could you be for a viral TikTok video? Latham did get the fame he wanted, just not in the way he thought he would.
Was fame on TikTok a motive for a killing? A grieving family says the answer is yes after their father was to death. Their 18-year-old neighbor has been charged.
The trial of Zachary Latham was extremely publicized because many people wanted to know the outcome of the case. But first, let's talk about what happened after he was arrested. Apparently, he wasn't incarcerated while awaiting trial because the judge assigned this case didn't think it was necessary for Latham to be jailed before the trial. Much to the prosecutor's objections, he was released from custody and permitted to relocate to Florida to await trial. So the teen was living the life of a free man until he was summoned to court again on May 2021. Now, you would assume Latham would try and stay low and out of sight, but no, far from it. He was enjoying the same attention he got from the media. I guess there's no such thing as bad publicity, even when you have pending murder charges on your name. Latham was taking advantage of the publicity. He continuously posted his content on TikTok, revealing information about the pending case. A judge had to order him to stop pushing the boundaries of his release orders. But Latham ignored the warnings and even created a new TikTok account so he could continue making public comments on the case. he boasted about being the murderer of his neighbor to portray himself as some kind of hero who put down corrupted law enforcement officers. Prosecutors got fed up with his behavior and filed a motion to revoke his release order. But before the motion could be reviewed by a judge, Latham managed to get himself arrested again in Florida. According to Florida Highway Patrol, Latham got arrested on January 23, 2021 in Fort Myers after threatening a 17-year-old motorist with a pellet gun that resembled an AK-47 assault rifle. And guess what the reason was that led to this confrontation? Latham continued his reckless behavior behind the wheel and almost ran the minor motorist off the road, like what he did to William's son. He was charged with 2 counts of aggravated assault, but was released from jail on bond and put on electronic monitoring. The fact that they still chose to let this guy out of prison shows how biased the judicial system is. He displayed terrible behavior towards anyone and everyone. He clearly disregarded and disrespected the court order. How could he walk free without consequences? The New Jersey versus Zachary Latham trial lasted approximately a month. They had Catherine Durham and her children take the stand to testify how the incident unfolded. Medical examiners also came into court to explain the nature of William Durham's injuries and the cause of death. Catherine and her sons admitted to confronting Latham, and she also admitted that there was no recording evidence of the alleged assault on her son. Video evidence was presented in court showing William trying to attack Latham first, and that's when he countered with a knife. An interrogation video of Latham was also presented to the jurors.
You know, when you see this portion of the video where Mr. Durham, actually, he's got blood all over him, he's still upright, he's still walking, starts walking out of the garage and then decides to turn back and go back in. So I don't know. There's a lot of questions with the video for me as far as how it's going to interplay with the affirmative defense of self-defense.
On April 13th, 2023, Zachary Latham was found not guilty on all charges. After the verdict was announced, Latham was seen celebrating his victory and thanking his attorneys in court. However, the judge did remind him that this incident was nothing more than a tragedy that could have been avoided. There was no winner in this case, and hopefully everyone can learn and grow from this unwanted occurrence.
This case was an absolute tragedy. The entire endeavor. There are no winners here. Mr. Latham, you were successful in your defense, but you still have to live with the events of those days and the consequences of it.
This ruling was met with a lot of mixed reactions. Many believe that because Latham fits into the privileged category of this country, therefore the judicial system was biased in his favor. They felt that he should have gotten jail time because there are others who are imprisoned for lesser crimes. Since before the homicide took place, the Durham family had tried to take legal actions against him but were unsuccessful. He was arrested for manslaughter but wasn't detained before trial. Then he was arrested again while awaiting trial and simultaneously leaking information from the case on social media. It may be an assumption, but records show that this kid got away with a lot of things. Then there are those who believe Latham acted in self-defense and was justified in doing so. The Durhams were at fault for attacking him on his property. Some people even believe that Catherine was responsible for her husband's death because she encouraged the altercation. Also, one of the reasons why people might take Latham's side was because of William's status as a correctional officer. The relationship between law enforcement officers and the public has always been strained, and some people viewed William as a corrupt official who abused civilians, and Latham was a victim. This is still considered an ongoing debate, though there is another prominent theory. Most people shifted the blame to TikTok and social media in general. In this case, TikTok is partially to blame, but not entirely, because TikTok and other social media platforms only serve as a foundation for sensationalism or phenomenalism. Basically, the glorified image of popularity and stardom that shaped the obsession to become a celebrity through these content-sharing sites. Latham was enamored with the idea of idolization through TikTok. He wanted to achieve that level of virtual success, but he was doing it through irresponsible and reckless methods. The craving for admiration isn't a bad thing, but the way you do it could affect you negatively. There have been way too many content creators and influencers who have done incredibly dangerous, vile, and foolish things in the past to gain a small amount of spotlight. Yet, the problem still exists. Until the people people of this society can understand and separate the concept of impractical success and real-world consequences, cases like this will continue to make their appearance. This case highlights the need for responsible media coverage because what you do on a virtual platform can impact your actual well-being. Finally, the most important question of them all. So where is Zachary Latham now? Well, as soon as Latham was announced not guilty, he immediately did this. It seems like he's all right with all this publicity. Quite frankly, he seems to be enjoying it, so good for him. I mean, we constantly throw around the word narcissist as a way to describe a self-absorbed person. But in this case, it seems like Latham is suffering from narcissistic personality disorder, or NPD, which is a mental health condition that causes someone to have an exaggerated sense of self-importance and lack empathy. Some of the trials of this disorder are preoccupation with power, beauty, or success, entitlement, arrogance, being interpersonally exploitive for their gain, and the excessive need to be admired. It is also more common in men. At the end of the day, this was still a depressing story of unfriendly neighbors. So many things could have been done to avoid this catastrophe. The Durham family lost a son, husband, and father due to a silly dispute. May their family heal from this event and continue their productive lives. After this disastrous incident, hopefully everyone will be more aware of toxic media usage and understand the consequences of their actions through both virtual and the real world. Do you think Zachary Latham's verdict was justified? Why or why not? Don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring that bell button for notifications.